get a 3-course meal, and then when you're ready, you tell the stewardess like, I'm ready for bed. Okay. You get pajamas too, by the way. They give you pajamas. And all your, yeah, she does. She makes your bed. It's like a comforter. And she like
fluffs your pillow.
Good night.
She give you a kiss good night too.
No, you went from the trap house to that, man. That's crazy.
That's great.
Wow.
It's been a wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hello, crazy. Wow. I've been to 4 3-star Michelin restaurants. Like, never in my life. Sometimes it's still hard to look back and be like,
yeah,
that's wonderful, man.
What's up, everybody? This is Selected Series. We're here with Chef Wu. My name is Luis. This is my boy David.
What's up, guys?
This is Renee.
What up?
And like I said, we're excited to get started. We're here with Chef Gabriel Wu.
What's up?
Chef here in Palm Springs. So we'll go ahead and start with Chef Wu. Go ahead and tell us about yourself.
All right, my name is Gabriel Wu. I've been a chef here. Well, I'm from Guadalajara, born in Guadalajara, but I landed here in Palm Springs when I was 5 years old, and I've been in the valley ever since. I've been working in the hospitality industry ever since my first job, which was almost 20 years ago.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's a long time.
You look so young, man.
You've been in the
right?
game for a minute. So what'd you...
Wait. Let me ask. When you said you landed here, was because you were a legal alien or
illegally? Yes,
yeah.
I landed here illegally.
Sweet.
I am a permanent resident now, just for those ICE agents out there listening. I have a permanent resident card ever since '98. So, or less than that, maybe like 92.
Americano.
All good, thank you. And I've been doing good. I mean, I'm no trouble, honestly. So.
You're a gringo now.
Yeah.
So take us back to 20 years ago. How did it all start?
20 years ago, yeah. So I was 15 and a half, and my dad came home one day and said, "Hey, I got you a job."
Sweet.
And I was like, "What?"
You're like, I didn't ask for that.
I didn't know I needed one, but I guess
yeah, to live there, you had to have a job.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Everyone kind of, and I think by that time I had been helping my uncles doing landscaping in the summers just to get a little money. Helping my dad when he was little. My dad's a shoe cobbler by trade, so he's one of like the old. That's like an old craft.
Craftsman.
Maybe like 4 in the valley left. So he got me a job there in dishwashing. So it started as a dishwasher, which I think is ideal in any of these trades. Like you start from the bottom, so you get to know when you get to the top, you know what it's like to be the person at the bottom, and you can
not look down.
It.
Not
Yeah,
look
you
down
don't look down on those people, and you appreciate them a little bit more.
So that kind of gives you an idea of this is what I want to do, right? Because you started off at the bottom, like in the kitchen washing dishes, and you're still in the kitchen now. Well, so it kind of,
I mean, yeah, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know. I just took
no
it
idea.
As a job.
Right.
I'm like, cool, I got a job. It's they told me come in at 3:30 after school, and this is what you're gonna do. It was a fun environment in a country club. It's more than in a little restaurant. There's maybe 50 employees. There's events going on, and it was cool. But really quickly, the chef noticed me and the work I was doing, and he's like, come with me, you're gonna help me set up the buffet. So we'd go down to the storage, get the bins of whatever it was. If it was like a Mexican themed night, we'd go down and get the sombreros and the sarapes and lay those all out on the buffet. And you kind of teach me about putting height in the buffet, like up and down, so it looks nice. It's appealing to
the dynamic,
guests. Like
the aesthetic, like
the aesthetic, very very important when food in any sense.
I got a question for you. What were your friends at the time? Because you said 15 and a half. What were your friends at the time thinking about you working?
Oh, they loved it for sure. Because by that time I had a car. So the money
check you
that
out.
I got
you had gas
my dad gave me a car. Worst idea ever. Parents, man, don't give your kids a car at that young age, dude. It's like, here's the car so you can take yourself to school.
Okay.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not going to school.
Right.
I have money and a car. That's
Yeah.
Going to school and
I
then
don't
ditching.
think
How
so.
did your dad come across that job, like, or that? Like,
My dad worked there also
Oh, okay,
in the locker room. So he would like shine the shoes if they needed some fixing or take cleaning of the cleats for the golf
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
golf cleats. He would do that. So he just had like an in already there. So he got me the job. But not to blame my parents. Like I'm not saying like bad parent. I mean,
Right.
just like here's
Yeah,
the car. Take
yeah.
yourself to school. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty cool. It wasn't a new car,
So you
which
be-
also is very important. Don't get if you're gonna get a car, don't get a new car.
Right. As
You
the first
became
car.
a deviant right after you got that car, or like were you just out and
I think
out
so.
and
It was
about?
right around the same time. I mean, with that much freedom, at the same time that was happening, my mom and dad were like not in a good place, getting divorced. We were separating, so maybe that's why my dad too was like, you need to help out.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Probably. So yeah, I mean that just opened the doors to all kinds of people. Growing up, when I was little, like in kindergarten, I won an award for like art, and I remember they always tell me, my mom always tells me, the kindergarten teacher told me like, take care of him. This guy's gonna be great. Like
Yeah.
he's
Okay.
special.
That's right.
He's special. Like make sure he does well in school.
Just to give the listeners a little more perspective, when you're 15, what year is that?
Yeah.
We're
exactly.
we're talking because we have a different demographic, and maybe
Oh,
we're
that's-
listening.
that's true,
Some
that's
people
true,
don't
very
know
true.
that like
it's a
um,
different times. There's no cell
this
phones.
is before the
Definitely.
2000s,
Right.
right? So we're in the
There's-
90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
This
and
is
This is like late 90s.
I signed up to be a freshman at CCHS in 1998.
That's right.
There you
Just to
go.
give you guys
So
a
That
little.
was like the first class.
Right.
that was
First class,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
No, I mean they were there before. My sister graduated from there in the year 2000, so
Oh, okay.
it was
Oh, okay.
open before that. But I was,
Yeah.
it was still fairly new. CCHS.
One of the first classes.
It was still
Yeah.
gray.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
say that.
Nice.
Oh, okay. It was so great. They that whole plan is from a jail, right?
Yeah, it's a
The-
prison.
The whole layout.
The,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Layout, yeah.
A lot of schools
The
are like
donut.
that. But
So you were telling us about I believe you said your uncle sent up the buffet.
No,
The chef.
The
He
chef.
took me
Oh, the
and
chef, sorry.
he helped me set up the buffet. The sous chef now was taking me and he's like, okay, you're gonna chop this case of parsley up, and they're teaching me the tricks. And one day he gave me a book, like a cooking book, maybe one from where he went to school, and
Yeah.
he said, here, but the sous chefs. There's always the chefs. He was dick.
He was an
He was
asshole?
me. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
an asshole. He just like kind of threw him here, like study this. Like, look at this book. And I was like,
well,
dude.
because your knife skills were slow, because your idea of
No,
what-
they were probably good. They were. He was
Oh,
probably
really?
like, okay, cool. This guy maybe he shows promise. Like,
so
here,
you
look
had
at
you
this
had
book.
potential from the get go then.
so my question is, did you ever have any interest in food
Before
and
that,
any
no. All
hospitality
I can
stuff?
say is that I grew up coming home with my siblings, and we would watch Julia Child
Okay.
because that was
Oh,
on TV.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
on
yeah.
cable TV, so channel 9, I think it was KCET. She was on there, and it was just entertaining.
That's
It wasn't because like, oh, I want to learn how to cook.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
just because she had that interesting voice, and
Yeah.
it was like bloopers in real time.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
though she would drop something like, oh,
Yeah.
so it was entertaining. So we would watch that. But I can't say that I grew up like, oh, let me help my mom
Yeah.
cook or that that's where I get it from, because I don't. Although my mom is a very good cook, I just never paid attention. I do remember though in elementary school, like when I had access to a library, I was like, oh, this is cool. You can learn about anything. I would get
Yeah.
the cookbooks and try to make cookies.
Oh,
at
so
home.
that did stem from
Yeah,
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't a lot, or maybe it wasn't because my mom was like super clean, and she's like, you're not making cookies here, and like, so we'd go to the neighbor's house and we'd make cookies.
That's
But he
Go
keeps,
play,
he,
come
he
back,
keeps
and they're
saying that
burnt.
no, but like
But-
everything he's saying is like
it's
Maybe
it's
it's like
subconscious inspiration. It's
Yeah.
like I just compare it, like me doing music. I used to play the drums like when I was 5. I didn't think of it, but it's similar to you. I mean, you
Yeah.
had an interest in those books, and then all those little things there and there. All those things added up to
Yeah.
oh shit.
It was also
I
art,
have that.
like
Yeah,
art,
yeah.
like
Yeah, yeah.
drawing and things like that.
Were your
But
parents-
but I knew it was some kind of art.
Hey, yes,
always knew it was
yes,
some kind of
yes.
art. Like I wasn't math or anything like that. It was always some kind of art.
Did your parents like want you to pursue what you wanted, or did they say no, you're gonna do this, or
No, I know. I had the
No?
freedom
Yeah.
to. They were always just very like adamant that I should be going to school. Obviously, like I think first generation for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was gonna
Latinos.
be like going to school and graduating high school and going to college. I think they really wanted me to go to college.
With that being said, going back to you going to school, like you started not going to school, you started.
Yeah, I was
doing-
always in gate. When I graduated middle school, I went to CP classes.
Yeah.
Starting freshman year, I had all the right friends. But sometime around my freshman year, I went the other way.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw the other side.
Because at home it was a little difficult to be at home, and you had to.
It was a little difficult, but not too bad. I was mostly on the like with my friends. So
Plus, you had a job, so.
and I had a job in a car.
Yeah.
So I had wide opportunities. The door was wide open for me to do whatever I wanted to do, and I chose the other side for a while. So there was a period of time where I remember being in school, hanging out with my friends that were in the CP classes, and they were talking. They were bummed because they got like a B or a C, like, and I was like, damn, really? Like, I gotta, have a D and a F. Like, damn, maybe I don't belong here. So I just straight up like
You cut
hung out.
ties.
Kind of started, like not hanging out with them at lunch. Started hanging out with this other crowd of friends that had more things in common with me at that time, which was freedom. So we can hang out at night. We can stay out late. We had cars. And which eventually landed me experimenting with drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, like some heavy stuff.
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you could
yeah.
say which no 15 or 16-year-old should be experimenting with, I should
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Or even like getting a chance to get a hold of some.
But it's awesome that you're sharing that with us, because right now they're doing like that dare or that drug campaign at schools, and they're talking about how marijuana, alcohol, and cigarettes are a drug. But right now what's going on with the kids is like these popping the pills and like all this stuff. It's like, yeah, it's medicine, but it's a drug too, and
definitely.
they're all
It's definitely a drug.
14, 15-year-olds that are going through this stuff, and maybe you can kind of
Go back and forth all the time thinking, was it a more intense time then or now?
Yeah.
I don't know, but because I remember back then in middle school I would ride my bike to school and come back, or maybe sometimes walk to school and come back, which is, I think, a little strange now. My mom she has more kids now that are younger, and she picks them up. Like, I have to go pick them up.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Times,
they can't walk right
sure.
now in the sun. I'm like, what?
you didn't care about me? What about me?
Yeah, we used to walk home all the time. So we definitely, I guess, had a little more freedom. We didn't have phones and all that, like I said. So if we weren't home, then it was
Until you got home.
until I got home. Yeah, then I could lie or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that epidemic of like younger drug use has always been there, but I think it's dope because you could tell that story, because a lot of people don't get out of that. And I mean, look at you where you're at right now.
Exactly.
And you're able to tell people that and tell people how to get past, because there's some people that are stuck in that, and I've seen it firsthand, and it's hard for them to get out of that because they think that that's their entire life.
Yeah.
And when they see people like you overcome that and be able to talk about it and be like that, you can overcome it, and you can be whatever.
It's never too late. Yeah, it's definitely never too late. Luckily for me, I realized that 2 years in, and I remember just being one day, like, the people around me were getting super like deeper and deeper into it. You're like, oh, okay, now they're dealing with these big ambiguous people that who are these people? What do they do? They look weird. I've been in houses where, like a trap house, I guess you could say now, at that age, which now it's like, I have a daughter now, she's 3 years old, and I'm just like, wow, she was like 16. Wow, like what was I doing, man? Like, in those places, definitely not the right place for a young kid. But luckily, the thing that helped me out was just picturing my mom, like to say she was looking at me through some kind of like camera or something, doing the things that I was doing. I was like, whoa, man, that would just break her heart, and just, I don't want to do that to my family, to my mom especially, and that's what helped me out. And
was it like an out of body experience where you're kind of judging yourself?
Almost, yeah. It's almost like one of those times where you like just like look in the mirror and you.
Is that what you were sober, or were you tripping out? Like, were you?
No, I was sober.
Oh, okay.
I definitely wasn't like on a trip, but it was just one of those days, maybe like the day after a crazy day where you just
You're regretting everything.
Yeah, you're regretting. You're like, what am I doing? Like, yeah.
Well, that's good, man. Not a lot of people, have that moment where they have to question themselves and realize like what they're doing isn't right.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's definitely hard because that world that you built and those experiences that you had with those people, all of a sudden, you have to leave behind and do your best to not answer those phone calls, to say no to the kickbacks and the hangouts. And
Were you still holding a job then?
No,
you got fired.
So yeah,
or?
I definitely got fired from my first job for being late and maybe a no call no show in between. Even though they gave me chances, that chef was really
plus
cool with me.
they were looking at your dad working there, and they're your dad vouched for you and all that stuff.
And they even offered me like, hey man, maybe when you get out of school, maybe we can help you go to college if you want to pursue this. Wow. Yeah, and I was like, wow, really?
Those drugs were strong.
Yeah. Not just the drugs, but the whole lifestyle, the whole everything that you picture you have, girls and drugs and parties and everything else, money, but.
So after that job, and you weren't like having any capital coming in, like how were you able to sustain your lifestyle?
I didn't. I remember those were probably like the worst 3 months I think I've ever had, where I was depressed. I think I was at home just at that time. We lived in an apartment with my dad. My mom and dad had separated finally. And it was like me, my brother, my sister, my cousin, his girlfriend, my sister and her boyfriend. Wow. So probably like 12 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment.
What?
Yeah. Everybody would like go to work and I would stay home just like on the couch. And I remember like digging in the couches for like money to go buy cigarettes, and then like come back home. And I was like, man. Like, what am I doing? So, at 18, like that's a crazy time. But I eventually like got it together, and I think I eventually went out to go look for a job. And I think my next job, I was like, I'm not gonna do the kitchen thing again, because it's in the environment. I mean, they call themselves pirates in the kitchen, because you get all those people. It's like after work, you drink or smoke, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went into computers and doing like data entry at United Rentals, which is like a construction company that rents out anything, a boom lift, a scissor, a saw, like whatever you need, they'll go there. And it was good times for the construction company, but then like everyone else, the construction boom hit, and boom, they started cutting everybody. And I was one of the first ones, but luckily one of my best friends was working in La Quinta at Stuffed Pizza, and he was just telling me like, hey dude, like, do you want to come make pizzas? Like, I'll pay you pretty good money. Yeah, and like
somehow the kitchen just kept calling you back.
That's why when people ask me, I always say the kitchen chose me.
There you go.
Because I really didn't want to do it, but it kept reappearing in my life.
Yeah.
What age was this at the pizza thing?
This was probably around 20 years old. So I was in the construction, and that was a nice job, Kush, man. They would send me out of town, San Diego, like go take this merchandise. So the whole day it was just me driving in the van, San Diego, coming back, and I was like, man, that's cool. So that ended, and I ended up back at a restaurant, and I was just doing line cooking. I was making pizzas actually to begin with, but then they were like, hey man, you're good at the pizzas. Why don't you jump on the hotline, and making entrees. So I jumped over there, and then eventually the kitchen manager left, and they looked at me and said, "Why don't you
run the kitchen?"
Yeah, to do the schedules.
How many years
was the training?
Was this in? Was this like 6 months in, a year?
This is probably like 4 months in, 5 months in.
Couple weeks.
Yeah, it started happening really fast. So, and then I was there for about 1.5 years doing all those things. But I remember one of the first experiences that I had where I said like, okay, this is what I want to do. Was I got that kitchen manager job, and all the old timers, the older people. I was young. I was 21,
by that time you had
22.
kicked the habit.
Yeah, I had kicked the habit, and it's crazy when you kick the habit, dude. I would have dreams where I would dream that I was doing it again and wake up like, oh, like it was just a dream, like a nightmare. Wow. Yeah, it's a nightmare, It's like, but that time, I was done, and then I was just in the kitchen, and the old timers would give me a hard time. Like, what do you know? You're 21. Pretty much like
Typical
fuck
old
you.
time.
Yeah,
But-
like,
but
fuck
you know
dude,
what?
I'm gonna do
Talking
my
about-
own thing.
Talking about your age right now, because you went through all that shit when you were younger. I mean, I'm sure that made you a lot more wiser than the normal 20, 21-year-old. So I mean, you get there.
Right.
I mean, you might not have noticed that subconsciously, but I mean, fuck, you're 21 now. You've been through all this shit. I mean, you've been through this shit that like 20, mid 20, older, people that are still
No,
struggling
you
with
went
that
through
shit.
a whole lifetime.
Exactly.
Yeah, where I've seen
exactly.
Yeah,
got-
pretty
you-
much almost hit like rock bottom.
Well,
I
you
guess
dragged
you could
yourself
say
through the
really
mud, for
fast.
sure.
Where
Yeah.
I was, on the couch depressed, searching for
Yeah.
money in my couches. So I knew I had to grind. Like
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? This is the only way to do it. You gotta
Not only
work.
did you
Fuck
have
yeah.
to grind, but you had to prove these people wrong, right?
Yeah, so that was the next step. So after they started giving me that crap, and I took a look and I was like, they're right. Like, what do I know? They've been doing this for
Oh, they got in your
years.
head?
Yeah, but I
He
mean,
took
it
it
was
as-
pretty true. I mean, if you technically it was true. Like they've been doing this for a while.
Right.
I come in and I'm like, I'm good at computers and I understand English very well.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be your boss now. Even though I don't.
Right.
He's
He's like, "You're right. I don't know
Even
everything."
though I didn't know the
So it was
shortcuts
humbling.
and things like that. So it was
Yeah.
humbling. So I said, you know what, I like this. I'm pretty naturally good at this. I'm gonna go to school. So I went to culinary school. I looked it up, and I the first one I got, I'm like, oh, let me go check it out. And I said, if I don't get in here now, like it probably won't
It's not
do
gonna
it.
happen.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. If I think about it too much, or if I look at like the money side of it and how long it's gonna take, and can I do it? Because I need to be working plus going to school to San Bernardino. I went to the Art Institute.
Oh shit.
So if I thought about it too much, I
I.E.?
wasn't gonna do it. Yeah, I eat for a little while. So I went to school 2.5 years. I had 2 jobs. I was still doing 2 jobs. On my days off, I would fill up my schedule for school and just be gone all day, doing as many classes as I can the whole day to graduate. And that was a fun experience. I noticed even then that I was kind of gifted in this
but
art.
were you falling now? Were you falling in love with the whole thing?
Now then, yeah.
Yeah.
When once you start learning more and you're like, oh man, like I can make this sauce, and now you can get creative and make these
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah.
And
The
they
ga-
weren't great.
What
I'm
was
telling you.
what was the like turning point when you started? Like, was it school that made you start appreciating it more, or was it like a CERN? Like,
Yeah, I think it was definitely school.
Yeah?
It was definitely school because I've never been in that kind of what would I say, like organized
Environment.
Like a s-
environment.
yeah,
Yeah, where like
structure.
you had to
'cause the
wear
Art Institute is-
your hat and your neckerchief under your coat, and you had to have a pen and a thermometer, and if you didn't
Right.
have those things, they would
So
kick
you were
out.
dressing the part.
Wow.
Yeah. Or if you weren't shaved, like you have to buy a razor
Really?
from the instructor for $1, and like the cheap one, and go to the bathroom and shave up because that was the level. That was the standard.
This is the Art Institute. Art Institute.
can you tell us
Wow.
a like just something that happened at school that like was tough for you that could maybe push somebody off and say fuck this shit and like dip out?
Yeah, like what kind of barriers?
Well, definitely the first barrier is like driving out there.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
like
Oh,
twice
you were
twice a
commuting?
week, an hour. Yeah, I was commuting, and
Oh
so
shit.
And you were working 2 jobs.
and I was still working 2 hours on the.
How
on
did
the
you
days
how
off.
did you manage to keep your head on the target?
I just turned everything off. Everything else didn't matter. Only work and school. Only work and school. And
So there was no social life. There was no.
Not really. The social life was happening at school.
Oh,
So
okay.
after school, we would hang out,
Sweet.
go to the parking lot, and we have the coolers, and we have a beer, that kind of deal.
College.
But other than that, no. I mean,
I'm just asking
which
these questions
was
'cause there's-
actually easier and better because I didn't have friends because I quit the
No
friends. so I-
distractions.
Yeah,
So
you were
the good
friends
friends that I had
The
didn't
friends
talk
that
to
you
me
had
anymore.
built were in that other lifestyle.
and they were still in that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
easy for
Wow.
me to say like, this is.
I gotta
good.
make a new-
It's almost like the rehab, but outside of it.
So you never went to rehab. You just
I never
cut
went to
cold,
no,
cold,
no,
just
cold
did,
turkey.
Yeah.
Life was your rehab. That's good.
Yeah.
Hell
So
yeah.
do you think how do you think being creative kind of benefit your being a chef?
Yeah, so I feel like I've always been creative ever since I was little. I remember asking my dad to bring me home boxes, when he would
okay.
come home from work, and I would build like dioramas so I could play with
Yeah.
like the toys that I had.
Yeah.
So creativity was always a gift of mine. So definitely when I started going to school and I could see that you can make this sauce, and this sauce can turn into this sauce plus that.
Right.
So you're like, man, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And like all the cuisines from different places in the world, you can combine them, take the technique from a Japanese dish and apply it to a Mexican dish.
Or even just like the appearance, right? Like how you dress something up.
Oh yeah, appearance definitely is huge, especially right now with the Instagram and Snap.
Right.
Like your
Yeah,
food
yeah,
has
yeah.
to look good if you want to make it.
So talking about kind of what your kindergarten teacher was saying about like, you know, the art thing. So as a chef now, you're a chef. Do you see yourself, I kind of always ask this, do you see yourself as an artist as well? Because I mean, you're saying that you've always been
definitely he's an artist, bro.
involved in art. So now it's like, yeah, I think, and like I always say, there's a point where you're a creative in whatever you are, and then that threshold that puts you above everybody is when you're a chef, audio engineer, graphic designer. But when you're an artist, it puts you above everything in your own world.
Apply it.
You know.
Yeah.
So I'm just.
And
Is that
like,
what you see yourself?
I guess what I like about what I do being a chef is not just about the food. It's like the whole experience. You can get creative in how you set the table. You can get creative in how a guest experiences walking in. So candles, do you want certain type of lights? Like how bright do you want it to be? Do you want more plants here, or what kind of glassware, what kind of plates? Like, so it goes.
So that's all a part of that's all a part
yeah.
of like Chef Wu's experience then, right?
Can
Yeah,
you
yeah.
give us kind of like a real quick rundown on how you would like set up a night for dinner for your guests? Like how would you guys go about setting up?
Right. So right now, I'll talk about what we do right now. So right now we set up a long table. It's 4 tables in one long line with the chairs.
Family
Depending
style?
on the it's family style. Depending on the weather, if it's gonna be a little chilly, we put nice little blankets on the back of the tables, so if you get cold, that's there right there.
Aesthetics.
The menus inside the napkin with the little herb from the garden that we grow, so that's there, like another little touch. Definitely fresh flowers. And then when you walk in, you have to be greeted with a smile, you know, like, hi, welcome. And then if you remember their name, if it's a returning guest, you of course like, oh, hi, Mrs. whatever, and Mr. Please, there's a little bite right here, some hummus, and we give them a little shot, a little flute of champagne, like, here's a little champagne, please. And you kind of start creating the night by having the guests wait a little bit, even if everyone's there on time. You want to make them wait a little bit, so they start kind of talking,
Suspense.
mingling with each other. Maybe like, oh, where are you
That
sitting?
definitely is
You know?
art, man.
You're
That's art
creating
right
an
there.
environment,
That is an
yeah,
art.
for
Yeah,
sure.
you create the whole.
Jeez.
It's just I don't want them to remember the food specifically. I want them to remember the whole night.
The experience.
Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
experience.
Wow.
Like, man, I want to do that again. That was fun.
That's
So
an
that's what I
art,
do.
man. Like that kind of reminds me of like what music can do to you. Like it can make you
Exactly.
feel good going out and experiencing
And that's
some
part of it,
dining
too.
like that.
Yeah.
The music that we have on
Right.
Oh, wow.
during the whole meal, the smells that are happening, because you know that's really tied to your memories. Music and smells are really tied to memory. So if you can hit all those.
Did
then
you
you've got
learn
one.
any of that in school? Is it any of the stuff that they
I
taught
don't
you,
wanna
or is
shoot
it
that
anything of
down,
like
but
your,
no.
your or any of your
wanna know
sous chefs
the
that
artists
like
it's-
anything like, or is this just with experience? you learned it?
School, culinary school. Well, my experience was a lot about theory.
Yeah.
Right, so your first class is like safety and sanitation.
Yeah.
And then you pass your exam that everyone needs if you want to be a manager in the hospitality industry, in the food industry. You need your serve safe. So they would help you get that. So now you have your serve safe. You're qualified to be a manager, and you need that at every establishment. Then the next class was like learning about stocks and sauces, the fundamentals of cooking. And then you go to international cuisine. So they tell you a little bit about every cuisine, Japanese, and you have to write these recipes when you get to class, and they'll check on, and like, all right, you can go, like you can cook. If you didn't write them down, then you're done. That's what you're gonna do while everyone's cooking. But it's a lot about learning a lot about theory and ingredients that everyone's using, techniques. But you can't expect to be a chef coming out of culinary school like that. Like
Right.
you need the experience.
One of the tools you walk out is thinking for yourself too, right? Like being able to be like, oh,
Yeah,
that
there
worked
you-
with this, and so now I can.
You pretty much discover like what you want to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, some people may be like, oh, I don't like that stuff. I'm gonna stick to Mexican. I'm gonna open up a Mexican restaurant,
Right.
or I don't like cooking.
Well,
I'm
they
gonna be a
gave you the
baker,
tools,
you
and
know?
so now you run with it, and now you create. It's not like they showed you and they gave you a template. Like, let's say you're like a cabinet maker or like somebody that works with wood. Like, you didn't get all the templates. You have to use your mind and your creative, you know, to create something out of scratch.
Yeah.
You have the tools, now make it. Like
Mhm.
that's
You
what you.
figure it out pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But you have the tools to
Yeah.
figure it out. That's what they taught you. Yeah.
So while you were in school, like, what was your biggest drive? Because to keep you going, because you mentioned there were like some barriers and stuff. What kind of pushed you through that?
I always wanted to go to college and kind of graduate from get a degree. So that kept me going all the time, because I felt like, you know, growing up until that time where I kind of got away from my path.
Yeah.
My parents were like, I was making them proud, you know, like, yeah, he's gonna do something.
Yeah.
He's doing good. And then I kind of went like, no. So, but even for myself, I always wanted a degree. Like, I always wanted to go to college and get a degree. So I didn't just get a culinary certificate. Like, I actually took sociology and all those kinds of classes, English and writing and all those to get a degree. So I got an associate's degree at college, which sucks.
That's
'cause
good,
like
man.
the artist just
Educated
closed, and
ass.
now it doesn't
Hell
mean
yeah.
anything. But that's what kept me going. That and the fact that I knew already in an early time in my career that I was different, that I was special. I had like a natural ability to combine flavors, to create different dishes and make things happen. So
Were you ever like cooking anything in the kitchen, and like the first time cooking where people told you like, oh, you know what, this isn't good, or you know what, this is good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was happening right in the beginning.
Oh,
At
okay.
Stuffed Pizza when I was the kitchen manager. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a special tonight. And it was just stuff that I had just learned in school, which is basic sauces and things. And I remember like the hostess would come and be like, that doesn't look good. You know, and I was like, you know, and then you have to take a hard look and then be like,
Yeah.
I can see that.
doesn't look good.
Yeah, you're right.
She's right.
Hey, shit.
You know, and like, yeah, okay, cool. And then I feel bad like for my girlfriend at the time, because I'd be experimenting at home.
yeah.
My parents, you know, I'd be like, I'm cooking tonight, and they'd be like, yay. And it's like
Fuck, man.
9:30 p.m. I'm still like working,
out.
almost there,
Almost done,
there.
almost
Yeah,
done.
have some crackers.
Oh,
I'm almost
man.
done. Yeah.
Everybody's sleeping and shit.
Yeah. Oh, and my mom and my siblings, they can have some stories about that. They're making ravioli for the first time.
Oh,
And I was
man.
So when was the
it's a
time
4-hour
when,
ordeal.
for the first time, somebody told you, you know what, this is really good?
Let's see. That wasn't really happening at Stuffed Pizza. Oh, that was like my next job. So Stuffed Pizza let me go. You know, I thought it was killing
Wow.
me there.
Was it because you weren't good at
You were
Because you
too
were
bad.
good?
These
Not
pizzas are too
because-
good.
Not because I was bad, because I remember that everybody, the managers,
He
the
was ahead
owners,
of
they
his
were
time,
crying. They were like crying, like, you know what, like this isn't the place for you. It's like you need to go
You're
and
bigger.
okay.
do something.
Okay.
We
else.
gotta let
Yeah,
you
they
go
were,
because
like,
you're
crying.
big. You're
That's
bigger
cool,
than
though.
this, man.
And I didn't understand.
We're
it.
holding you
Right.
back. We're holding
that
you
is
back.
super dope.
So I had to go look, and I remember, oh man, around those times, my health was off. I was stressed out. I went to go work at a couple restaurants that weren't good. I was like, oh man, what am I doing here? But I landed at this at country club in La Quinta, the La Quinta Resort. But they have so many different outlets there. So it was the Citrus Club in La Quinta, and that chef, I interviewed with him, and he's like, how do you make risotto? You know, I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
off the
crap,
bat.
that's a good question. I'm like for one person, or are you trying to do it for the line? And it's like, just tell me how you make it. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're gonna take your rice, your arborio rice, and then you're gonna add a little olive oil or clarified butter, depends what you have, and toast it. And then and he's like, okay, cool. So he gave me the job, and he was my first mentor, Chris Olson. Shout out to Chris also.
Shout out Chris.
He's at the Thunderbird Club right now, serving like Obama and all that. It's cool.
Wow.
But he
That's
was
a good
like,
mentor.
he is a
Yes.
good mentor, man. He
Wow.
was like a robot, dude. He was there when you got there, even if you were the first one, and he was the last one to leave. So that was a great example of a dude. And he was in there with you, and he'd hot pan, like teaching you almost fundamentals. He was like a teacher to me. But that was the first time that I remember making something that was way different. We made like these Moroccan lamb shanks with couscous and stuff, and I didn't even know. You know, I don't know what the
Shit
hell that
sounds
shit
good.
is,
Sounds
right?
amazing.
I don't know why, but I could taste that right now.
That
I'm
tastes
like,
good.
okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. And then I remember that time we were braising, which is like cooking something in liquid in the oven. And he's like, you're going to, put the things in there. You're going to put some plastic wrap over it, like saran wrap, and then foil on top of that, and then put it in the oven. You know, I was like, okay. And when it came down to that time, I was like, plastic first and then foil? I was like, what the hell is that? So I had to go check. I'm like, you said plastic first and then foil, right? I'll tell you. He's like, yes. I'm like, okay. Yeah. You know, and that's like one of the
Tricks.
the best tricks. Yeah, like it's like a
Wow.
trick. It seals really nice and it boils everything in there really nicely.
Okay.
So
You thought he was messing with you
yeah,
at
I thought I
first.
was like, what?
Man, he's trying to
Yeah,
sabotage me.
plastic in the oven.
Yeah.
Saran wrap, but that's how you braise things.
There
And
you
ever
go.
since then,
I used-
yeah, that's one of those things that.
I used to work at Disneyland, and I don't know if you've heard of Napa Rose. They have like a like a 4 diamond restaurant there or whatever,
nice.
and
Yeah.
the chef there used to, I think he fired somebody for burning some flatbread or something. Yeah, because like it was like this 3rd time burning flatbread. It's like
Right.
every day he would walk in and he's like, burn it. The next day, burn it. And the third, it's just like, dude, we gotta let you go. But
Yeah.
these guys would work 12-hour days because they would get there, they would set up the kitchen, and then they had to clean everything afterwards.
Yeah.
Like after the restaurant had closed, these guys they were basically like
It's
being
a,
like
it's a
it's
crazy job, and I think that stems from all that, from being young and almost like a little bit misogynistic. You know, you like punishment.
Yeah.
That makes you feel good. Like knowing that
Did you
yourself
did
up
you have
every
to
day.
work those long hours?
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff?
my first job, that dishwashing job, was 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. Like we would. And I was still in school. I don't know how that was legal.
Holy
Don't
shit!
tell
Yeah,
me.
no, for real.
But like, we would work. They would close down the restaurant, and so it was me and like 2 other guys, dishwashers, take out all those rubber mats, probably like
Right,
20 pounds
right,
each
yeah.
or more. You know, and there was
Fucking-
probably like
yeah.
15 or 20 of them. Take them out, wash them.
I have a little bit of insight on that. When the food would show up to the dishwashers and the plates weren't being touched, were you guys eating all that food?
Not
No?
all the time.
Not all the time.
I always
It
wondered
depends
that.
what it is. If it's like
Yeah,
shrimp
'cause
or
we were-
lobster, yeah,
we were
definitely,
getting
buy
like
that.
Like
we were
$40
getting
plates?
at that restaurant. We were getting duck. We were getting like lamb. We were getting all this like top notch food. They would just grub on that, and it was like shoving their face. It was like you know,
Because you could tell they were really, really hungry.
no, but like you're talking about like
Disco, like,
this
what?
I had
very
an eye on that all day.
very expensive restaurant, right? Where people sit down and they got this like very nice like $1,000 suit on and they're eating and stuff, and then that food gets to the back of the kitchen and these fat dishwasher dudes, dirty as hell, are grabbing the food with their hands and just shoving their face. You're talking about you're talking about duck. You're talking about the most expensive food, and it's being consumed in the front of the kitchen. And these people are paying, $900 for a dish.
Yeah.
These guys are eating it for free in the back. That's
That's one way to get your hands on a
some
dish
crazy.
like that.
That's
yeah.
crazy, huh?
But no, I don't think there was ever a need for that. I mean,
I'm
even
gonna
in
see.
dishwashers, we treat dishwashers pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
we know they're at the bottom of the chain as far as
No, I know, but I'm
wages
just
go
like,
and salaries.
I got
so
to see that kind
you
of
treat
stuff
them
with
really
Sky.
good.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, what do you want to eat? I'll make you that dish.
Oh, damn, that's-
whatever.
that's
or
sweet.
try this sauce. So they have to get
Okay.
excited and believe in the product that you're selling as well. So they're very important, and they're
Yeah,
like the
for-
backbone of
yeah.
the kitchen.
Your kitchen
Yeah,
doesn't run if
clean,
they
Right.
Yeah.
the dishes. They'll
That's cool that you were able to
Yeah,
experience that, because now as a chef, you see them and you understand what they're going through.
For sure.
Yeah, and I learned a lot of different things from different chefs along the way for those lines, like for management. For you never ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself.
Gotcha.
That's always very important. Chris Olsen always told me, don't think about the money. The money will come. So to make moves, because everybody wants. If you're looking for the money, you're gonna land somewhere.
Right. You gotta love what you do.
Yeah. So I have a question. So for inspiring chefs, what are some of the biggest challenges in the food or chef in the hospitality community? Like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you feel they could face? And what's your advice on it?
Man, that one's hard.
What to look out for?
Yeah, like what to look out for. What were some of the biggest challenges that you felt like maybe you went through that are common? And what's your advice?
Well, everybody knows. If you look at the documentaries like Chef's Table and all those things, that before you say like I want to be a chef, gut check yourself. Are you ready, set, down to leave your friends behind, to forget about family gatherings like birthdays, holidays? You're gonna be working.
So the sacrifice,
in the kitchen,
like being ready
is
to
huge.
sacrifice.
Sacrifice is huge. And I don't blame them. My family now rarely invites me to things, like they don't call me. Maybe it might be on the WhatsApp family thing, but everybody already like, oh, he's probably working. If it's Saturday or Sunday or Friday,
they know.
You can count me out because I'm gonna be working.
But you're also self-indulging yourself in your own like passion.
I love it.
In your own passion.
I don't mind.
Hell yeah.
I don't mind. The good part is now. I mean, I don't know how we're doing in Tampa, but right now where I'm at, these owners, I've been to Europe. They took me to Europe in a way that most people probably won't ever experience in their life. Like Air France Le Premier, which is you get a bed. You check in when you check into the airport. You don't even go to the. You can go up to the side of the kiosk and be like, I got my ticket. Like Air France Le Premier. Like, okay, hold on one second. And then you get your own person that's like, come this way.
Wow.
Yeah, come this way. They take your bags. You go to this lounge where they give you a menu or it's a food, but there's no prices. Everything's already
paid for.
Included. Yeah, you choose that. You get on the plane. There's Vouv, whatever, 65 on there, and it's like champagne. You get your seat, and it's like big seat, man. Yeah. You get a 3-course meal, and then when you're ready, you tell the stewardess like, "I'm ready for bed." Okay. You get pajamas too.
Tuck
by the
me
way,
in,
they give you pajamas. And all your,
tuck me
yeah, she
in,
does. She makes your bed. It's like a comforter, and she'll like tuck you in.
Fluffs your pillow.
Good night.
She give you a kiss goodnight too.
No, you went from the trap house to that, man. That's crazy.
Go.
That's great.
Wow.
I've been in Rome.
Wow.
You
know what I'm saying?
Hello, crazy. Wow. I've been to 4 3-star Michelin restaurants. Like never in my life. Sometimes it's still hard to look back and be like, oh
yeah,
that's wonderful, man.
What's been your
a lot of lives, man? That's dope.
What's been your favorite meal that you've had when traveling?
When traveling, it was probably Italy. In Italy, man, everybody has a little garden.
Like the Mecca.
Everyone has a little
Bomb
garden.
food, right?
So you just get tomatoes, like the juiciest, most ripe tomatoes from the front yard, and they don't do much to it. That's the best. That's probably the best food that you can have. If you can get a tomato cut in half, just sprinkle some salt, some olive oil, and you taste it, and you're like, wow, man, that's a good tomato. Yeah, like you don't have to do nothing. That's really good food right there.
Talking about tomatoes, let's just shout out to Garden and Eric there.
They're
they're farmers.
Right.
We need to talk to these guys.
I worked with Garden a while back when I first came to Palm Springs at Jow restaurant.
I should have hit him up to bring some tomatoes today.
Should have. Then
we could still do it.
You guys are missing out. They're so delicious, man.
Wow.
I ate 8 of them just sitting there, just like.
But aren't the best things like the simplest things?
Yeah.
Wow,
That's
really?
almost my whole philosophy now. Growing back when I was in school, and when you're in school, you can tell a lot about a chef, especially like young ones, because they're like, oh man, I'm gonna like do this and that and freeze dry it and do this and add this sauce and too many ingredients, and it's like, dude, no, the best food is the simplest food. It's the best ingredients that you don't have to do anything to it. Like those tomatoes.
Well, those tomatoes were grown with love, man, for sure. And you can tell a grocery store tomato to the one that Eric and Garden grew.
Yeah.
Just
right.
unbelievable.
All right, so what I really want to ask you is there any cool celebrities, any politicians, anybody
man.
that you've like worked with that you kind of want to brag about? A little humble brag right now,
dude,
you know?
I'm so not a bragger, dude. I don't
Those are
even
stripes, bro.
I barely post
Stripes,
on
stripes,
Instagram
yeah.
or anything, but like I said,
Well, this your
I've
time
been
right
to 4 Michelin star restaurants, three Michelin star restaurants, 4 of them. Thomas Keller, who's one of the biggest
Ooh,
chefs
yeah, I
in
saw that,
the
man.
world.
You cooked for him.
He's in my email threads. Like
wow.
Hey,
we
relax,
have,
bro.
we have connections with them. I've been to both
flex.
the French Laundry. So I went to the French Laundry, which is another crazy story, dude.
Wow.
On a private jet for the night. Like the
course.
owners surprised me and like 2 of the general managers. By saying like, oh, we're gonna go to dinner right here in Palm Springs, and then they took us to the airport, and they're like, who guessed it? You know, and then we're like, well, never would I guess that. We got on a private jet, flew to Napa, party bus, 2 French Laundry, Dom Perignon, have
Wow.
12-course dinner.
You
fly
can't remember
back
the
that
rest,
night,
huh?
Have some more wine. No, I can barely remember that. When I went to New York, I saw Hamilton. They hooked it
Ooh.
up. I saw Hamilton free. Went to Per Se, where they shaved so much white truffles
Man.
on my pasta. And went to the Colbert Show. Like just great
Wow.
We said a
experiences.
light flex. We said a light flex.
A light
Hey.
flex, right? Came back, and even here, so when Coachella goes down, oh man, they rent out the hotel. So I've done like a 300-person brunch for Levi's. They rented out
Wow.
Sparrow's Lodge, and Solange Knowles was there, Emily Ratajkowski, Alexis Wren. Who else? A bunch of DJs.
You said you did some stuff for James Franco too.
James Franco came to the Holiday House this
Oh,
last
man.
Coachella.
What you serve him?
And he had a baby greens salad with add chicken. Very boring. I was like,
yeah,
that's it?
man, James Franco.
But yeah, he came in
What
with
you
his little
starting right now?
entourage, his girl, and he was nice enough to take a picture with me. That's on the
Oh, that's right.
on the IG. Tyler Florence, another chef from the
Think
Food
about
Network,
what's coming
just
up
came.
next, bro.
Jesus.
I've done a dinner, the surprise dinner. Like this one was like 2 years ago at Sparrow's Lodge. They told us Anna Gasteyer was one of like the biggest comedians,
Yeah.
female comedians, like
Yeah,
in
she's big, bro.
Saturday Night Live. Was gonna have her birthday there, and we thought
The whole
we thought it was a
squad
prank.
showed up,
Wow.
man.
We thought it was a prank, and we were like, yeah, right. But that day, a cake arrives, and it's Anna Gasteyer on there, and we're like, oh, it's going down. And it was Tina Fey, Maya Rudolph, Anna Gasteyer,
Yeah.
Amy Pollard, and Rachel Dratch. And they came. And
Did they tell
took
jokes?
a picture. They were funny. Yes, they were definitely.
I think they're just
definitely
naturally funny,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah,
I think
for
they-
sure.
From the Shark Tank. Dang, I don't even.
Wow,
I
Shark
feel
Tank
like
guys.
There's more. Yeah, I get like really nervous because I always do a speech in the beginning of the dinners, but when I catch eyes with them, I was like, oh
Whoa.
god. Yeah, recently just met David Kench at his restaurant Manresa in Los Gatos, California. That was crazy too. He came out and I was, oh wow, like the chef owner, who's a celebrity in himself,
Right.
came out and surprised me from behind like the dish pit. But yeah, there's been a bunch. Kevin Spade, like there's almost too many that to remember, but it's been a ride for
Wow.
sure, for sure. Been a
Impressive, man.
ride. I never paid for Coachella.
Lucky.
Fuck.
There's
They always hook it up. That's just if you're
um
local.
That's right.
this question's for Danny. Danny was talking about how
Shout out Danny.
they're
Danny.
yeah, shout out Danny. Thank you.
Sir.
She was mentioning about a dish that you see maybe that you would like to be done the way I don't know how to really
Almost
ask
like
this.
known for. Well, actually, I have like a surprise for you guys. I'm gonna cook for you guys right
Sweet.
now. A little dish.
Oh,
It's
shit.
called pasta. It's a carbonara.
But like, why are you gonna cook that? I think that's what I was trying to frame this question
Because
this way.
there's a lot of things, right, that we, especially here from the valley, and if you just eat kind of around here, you have a standard for these dishes that aren't from here. And until I went to Italy and had this pasta carbonara, I was like,
Dude, we're gonna have an Italian dish then.
that's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to recreate that for you guys right now.
Oh, shit.
So can you walk us through the dish a little bit?
So it's interesting. Talk about melding two cuisines together. So pasta carbonara is pasta, right, and then some pecorino romano, a little bit of pancetta in there that you cook up a little bit. You toast it up a little bit of garlic. But the interesting thing is the egg. There's always an egg in the recipe that goes in. So you throw the egg in there when everything is still super hot, and it kind of cooks in there, and you get that little bit of cooked egg flavor, and that's what really elevates that dish and adds that richness.
Sweet.
Now let's talk about some more recent. So after being at the country club, what's some more recent that you've been up to?
Yeah, so I got my first opportunity to cook in Palm Springs. This is probably about 7 years ago, maybe, for a good group of restaurateurs. I guess one of the first ones here in Palm Springs. I started working with them. I worked with them for about a year and a half, and then had to go my own way. Ended up at a catering company that they grossed like 1.5 million in the year that I was there, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I did things for Dior, Johnny Depp's cologne, Savage, like in the middle of nowhere.
That's
Well, not Savage.
Joshua,
Savage.
Savage, bro. And then from there, I was gonna tell you my story about how I landed at the place I'm at right now, which is Sparrow's Lodge and Holiday House in Palm Springs, two little boutique hotels. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
Great companies to work for. But by being a yes man, I say it. So I was at this catering company, and I was doing well. I was doing well at this time now, after a period of bouncing around a little bit, trying to find my home, because I had to leave the restaurant group that I was at because it just I feel like they didn't believe in me.
Okay.
Right, like everything I would make, everything I would try to do, they didn't believe in me.
Why do you feel like they were like? So you feel like they were underestimating you?
They were underestimating, definitely.
Why do you feel that way? Or why did you feel that way?
Because I could see it, right? So I came into this restaurant group as a sous chef. I thought I was gonna be a sous chef, was just like second in command in the kitchen. And once we started working, it was a Pan-Asian restaurant, so anything Asian, like Japanese, Chinese, Mongolian, like anything that falls under the Asian category, we were doing that food. But I had barely any experience, only what they taught me at school, right? So everything that I would do was, like we were talking about earlier, self-taught through YouTube, through Google, like, and trial and error. So I would look at hours and hours of videos of these people, street vendors, making these pad thais in Thailand, and learning until I found like the best one that was really good for what we do. But they kept firing the chef and hiring another chef instead of like saying, okay, Gabriel, now like you're up. They would get another guy, and that guy was worse than the last one.
Oh, okay.
And but I was still carrying the kitchen because I was the only one that was there from the beginning.
Right, they're going through chefs. You're still there.
What the clientele that we have here in Palm Springs, which is very particular, like they're a little bit older, right? So at that time, some of these newer restaurants wouldn't have made it because it was all about steak and potatoes back then.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel like they didn't believe in me, so I gave them 30 days. I'm gonna leave. My 30 days. I had no idea what I was gonna do.
Wow.
I ended up at another restaurant where some lady needed help opening a night business. I told her I can do this. She promised me a certain amount of profits from the overall gross net of the restaurant. It didn't happen, so I had to leave there. And then I ended up going backwards. Like I got a job at Appetito when it first opened, like $12 an hour just to make ends meet. And I was working that job. I went back to Chris Olsen, my first mentor. I was like, hey, do you have any work for me? He said, sure, like come on in. And I helped them out for a little bit. Not what I wanted to do, but what I had to do at that time until I got the right opportunity at the catering place.
Right.
And he believed in me, and he was like, man, like you're good. So I started off as a cook. Very quickly, he's like, okay, you're going to be sous chef. Here's this much. And then soon after that, he said, okay, you're going to be like the chef de cuisine, which is like the one who controls most of the food. He still called himself the chef out of ego, honestly. But, and he wasn't even cooking at that time, but he made me chef de cuisine. And then, but he had a temper. dude. Like
okay.
he was a little difficult to work with, the owner, because he would blow up.
Yo, I feel like that's
rub
the
his hands.
stereotype
chef
in the
master
kitchen. Is
type
that
of
the
Yeah,
thing?
thing?
maybe
Like,
it is
why?
a step. I've never thrown a pan in my life. Like, you know, they talk about people like throwing pans
Yeah.
in the dish pit when they're mad, or like breaking a plate. Like,
Do you think like social media and like TV have made that more of like a mainstream thing to do? Like be like
definitely has.
more diva-ish?
I think it has, but I think it's still around. Like, it's still a trait that people think a good chef should have.
Not
Like,
to
you
go
should be
off-
almost scared of.
That's crazy.
Not to go off on a tangent, but when you said right before you started talking about this, you said, I got to where I'm at because I was a yes man.
Oh,
or
right.
What did you mean by that? Can you elaborate a little bit?
So you know, if there, I'll tell you this one story from Chris Olsen, right? So he said, one day he's like, "Hey man, do you know how to trim a tenderloin up? You know, like that's where filet mignon comes from. It's this part of the cow, like on your loin here, that's just almost pure meat, no fat, which is not the best steak." Which is kind of weird how they sell it as
They
like
say
the
it's
best
not.
kind of
Yeah.
meat, but
Ooh,
doesn't
yeah.
have that much flavor, but it's soft. You know?
Right.
But he's like, "Hey, do you know how to trim one up?" And I said, like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, we want to help me tonight? I'll show you." I said, "Okay, sure." He said, "But you got to clock out. You know, like I'll show you like after."
Okay.
And I said,
Really?
"Okay." I said, "Yes." You know, "Okay, yes. I want to learn." So I clock out, and he brings out like 10 boxes.
Motherfucker.
And 2 each in every box. And I was like, what the hell,
I'm gonna need
dude?
some help.
No,
So
he
we
was-
stayed there for
yeah.
2 hours after me and him, side by side, just cleaning tenderloins
So
up.
did you learn?
Wow.
Well, I fucking learned. Yeah. Yeah, now I know how to clean a tenderloin and tie it up, you
Shit.
know, but I didn't say like, "Oh, no, I'm sorry, I had plans." You know, like even if I did have plans, which were probably bullshit plans
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
this was more important to me. Like,
Yeah.
I got to learn how to clean a tenderloin. Eventually I'm
It's
going to
gonna
need
play
that
out,
skill.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, you still remember that lesson though,
Oh, yeah, I
right?
still
You know, it's
remember
like,
And so later on, you know, I do that thing. I'm doing these gigs, and I have the catering job, and this acquaintance, almost friend that I knew, hits me up on Facebook like 11:40 p.m.
What the?
Like, you know, on a Sunday night or something. She's messaged me like, "Hey, Gabe, I have a friend in town. He owns this hotel. He's kind of on the outs with his girlfriend, and he's looking for maybe a cooking lesson to kind of bring him back together
Check that out. Wow.
tomorrow.
wow.
And he's only in
Tenderloins,
town for
tenderloins.
tomorrow. Pretty much name your own price. Are you available?" And I was off the next day, and I just like, man, yeah. I said, yeah.
Yes.
I'll do it, dude. I'll do it. I'm off. I can't give you a menu right now, like off the top of my head. I kind of have to look for what's good tomorrow and kind of pick up these things, but I'll do it. And I didn't even think about the money, honestly. Like, she said, name your price. He owns a hotel. He's rich. But when I went there and I did the job and he loved it, I made salmon, and he said, like, "Wow, how did you cook this salmon so perfectly?" And I said 10,000 hours. And then he got the reference, right? So he's like, "Oh, you've read Outliers." And I said, "No, I haven't. But a chef that I've worked with told me that in order to become a master in something, you have to do it for 10,000 hours."
Wow.
He's like, "Oh, wow, that's cool, dude. Well, you should read Outliers. And by the way, I'm opening up this hotel, and it's gonna have a kitchen, and we're looking to do lunch, maybe some dinners eventually down the road. Are you interested?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. I'll take your card."
By the
bro.
way.
Because people say that, you know, people, when you're doing those kinds of gigs, people are like, "Oh yeah, well, like maybe you can do this for something else," and they never do. But sure enough, dude, a year later, almost exactly a year later, my boss from this catering job is going off on a tantrum about some other employees, and he's just going off, and I get a phone call, and it's from a friend that I hadn't talked to in years, but I know where he worked, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder what he wants," you know. So I heard, I just put it on silent, and this dude kept going on. The dishwasher came out of the kitchen. He's like, "Hey man, is everything all right?" You know, like ready to like come out. And I was like, "Oh no, it's okay. He's not yelling at me. He's just yelling." You know, and then I go like, okay, and I go listen to the voicemail, and he's like, "Hey Gabe, I don't know what you're doing right now, if you're happy or not, but I have this opportunity for you. Why don't you come in and you can check this place out?" And you know, and I went, and sure enough, I took a little bit of a pay cut. But I knew that eventually in the long run it was going to be beneficial for me, and it really was. Like, it was really the turning point, I think, in my life, where I got to see a lot of things and cook what I want to cook and make a lot of people happy, which is really the core of what a chef is being about. You're making people happy, dude. Like, it's instant gratification.
What a story.
You make food, you give it to people, and you can see, man. I like to sneak out there and look at the faces when they eat, and they're like, you know, like,
eyes roll back.
So good. Boom, instant gratification. Don't pay me. I don't need my check. Just that's how I.
That's all I need.
That's
right
all
there.
I need right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would love.
What a beautiful story.
Like, if a chef
Yeah.
cooked something for me, I would even like him or her to see that I enjoy the food too. You know what I mean? Like,
And that's a big thing that I do now. Every dinner that I do or at work, I go out in the beginning and introduce the whole staff down to the dishwasher, and the dishwasher usually gets the biggest clap,
Right.
the biggest round of applause, you know, because I always say she set up the table and she does all the dishes.
Right.
After then, people like, you know, and it was just awesome. I love seeing.
yeah, it's cool because
that.
you never know. Like, that dishwasher can be a chef one day.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean?
And I give them all the opportunities.
Right.
But yeah, the point of that story was
Can
like,
I-
if you can do something that is something that you love to do, and you know, you might not go swimming or get lay out, you know, the
Right.
next day or whatever, just do it, because you never
Right.
know what's gonna come out of it.
Can I ask you, the way it's presented, is that all you? It's like the way you're introduced and like the way.
Oh no,
this-
that came from a meeting before, and sitting down with, you know, the owners, and
It's a
and
collaborative.
it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, we should do, and it's always a work in progress. It didn't start off that way. It started off maybe like a nice little dinner for 13, and this is what we're gonna do. But eventually, as time went on, you're like, how can we improve? And you're always looking for ways to improve. Like, oh, now we're gonna add this in the middle, which is a little bite from the chef that's not on the menu. And that's kind of like a secret, but it's fun. And then, when they leave, now we're gonna give them this little memento to remember the night too. And
Right.
and you get inspiration from our travels and eating at other restaurants and doing.
How does the
things like that.
how does the dinner come about? Like, how do you know how to set up your guest list? Like, do people have to book in advance?
People have to book in advance, and luckily for us, it's like 4 months in advance
Oh wow!
during
Wow.
season.
Awesome.
Yeah, because it's a family affair, and we do 32 to 40 people at one time.
And you can just go with your spouse and like
Yeah.
sit with a bunch of
And
people.
you sit with
yeah.
a bunch of strangers, and you know, you share stories. And by the end of the dinner,
You made some new
sometimes I
friends?
can't even like get in there and say thank you, because everybody's having a good time.
That's
and they don't want to
wonderful,
leave.
Wow.
What a beautiful experience!
Yeah, food
it just
brings
sounds
people
awesome.
together,
Yeah.
man, and it's just a great. It's a great profession to be in,
Yeah.
I think, because it's a necessity. I always think about that too when like I get down on myself. Back in the days when I'd be like, man, servers make all the money.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I should be a server. But then I'm like, but that's no, you know, what if I was like on a deserted island?
And I know how to
I can take like fruits and things and make like a meal for myself. What are they gonna do?
Wow.
You
Look
know?
for that
So I'm
cash.
like, and even if, you know, AI and robots and stuff get in the future, are they gonna be able to cook and taste
Right.
things? Like, no, dude, my
Nah.
profession is like
It's-
forever.
It's a necessity.
Yeah, it's a necessity. It's a human necessity.
Even just to feed yourself.
hmm
There you go. So if you're thinking about whether being the chef or being the server at the time, which one is more important?
money's
There you
fine,
go.
but in
You-
the long run,
That's a good segue to maybe you can ask that question that we always seem to ask. You know.
Yeah.
Staple selected.
Yeah, let's do it.
question.
So Gabriel, let's say you picture yourself crossing paths with 18-year-old you. What would you tell him?
I'm gonna take that from Jaime over there and get off your ass.
There you
dude.
go.
And go
Shout out.
and be
That's right.
you.
Goya.
Be yourself. Be you, dude. Like you, I feel like you know when you're younger, who you get a glimpse of like who you are, right? And
Yeah.
people are telling you that stuff, like, oh man, you're good at this, or you're very creative, you're very athletic, you know,
Right.
like. Don't that's it right there.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's it right there.
Okay.
Just be you and focus on that, and discover that. Like, don't be afraid to experience that, to dive in, to meddle in it. You know, like, ask yourself questions, even go out and do things. Like, I knew I was going to be creative. I almost went to art school. Like, I went and applied, and they showed me the school, and I took the little test, you know, if you're going to get in. But and I was like, maybe no, you know, but I went there.
Yeah.
And cooking called me more,
right?
Obviously, but art was in me from when I was little.
And I feel like
Still an artist,
you somewhat incorporate it still within your
for sure
culinary. Yeah. So, I mean, like, what's next now? Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Because from just this, you know, you're on the up and up. It's on. I feel like from here, it's just getting better and better.
And you're still
and
young,
better.
man. You're still
right.
You're still. You're
So
a
where do
young
you see yourself
Young
in
stallion.
Yeah, I wish I
10
was
years.
younger. You know, some people always tell me that. I'm like, oh, you're so young. You know, like, there's some kids out there younger than me. They're like killing it. You know, but I've always thought that I'm from Palm Springs. You know, people always ask me like, where'd you come from? Are you from LA? You know, because people from around here assume that if you're really good at something, you must have come from
They brought
somebody
you from
else.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're imported.
You're imported.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're imported.
Nah, you're just
but
showing
no, dude,
that
I'm from like I
comes
didn't
from here.
even do what most chefs do, which is like, I want to get good. I'm gonna go to New York
Or
and
go to
train,
France,
you know,
right.
or I'm gonna go
Some
to
people
France
get
for
good and
2
leave.
years.
Right.
Yeah, like, no, dude. I trained here. Luckily, I ran into some really good chefs that mentored me. At the country club where I worked for like 3.5 years, every season I had a different chef. I had a chef from Singapore, I had a chef from the Midwest, and I just always had a little notepad in my back pocket and the pen, and just wrote down every recipe that they gave me, every tip, every ingredient that I didn't know. I would like write it down. So I have tons of these little notepads still like in my closet that I can reference. But that's what I did, and I want to represent for Palm Springs because I love this city.
It's not where
it's not
you're
even
from,
that
but
big.
where you're
It sounds
from.
crazy, like
Yeah.
Nah, but
represent
Palm
your
Springs
city, but
Palm Springs is global, bro.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm you know, that's kind of like the little joke that we have going on right now from Palm Springs for Palm Springs, like little mayor. But eventually, I would like to open up a restaurant of my own. I think it's a good
Of course.
gauge.
Yeah.
You know, if you say
It's a
you're
good
really
goal,
good, then
yeah.
like,
You just said it here,
do
man.
it.
So
Do it from the
speaking
beginning.
it out
Yeah,
into the
watch
universe
out.
right
I'm
now.
putting it out right
That's
now.
right.
That's
That's
the
right.
first step.
Hey,
man.
by
Very
the way,
important.
those little notepads, are you gonna put a book together so we can get some of these nice recipes?
I've been thinking about a book for a long time now.
Wow.
I think it's I just haven't ran into the right
Publisher?
person. Yeah, that's
Right.
like, dude, I've
Hey,
written
we
a
can-
book, or you know,
Hey,
something like that. So
anybody that's
anybody
listening,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm right
Actually,
here.
when we're done, I have a person that you could probably
Hey,
call.
that'd be
there we
super
go.
cool, dude.
Yeah.
I have enough material for a book. I think one or two.
There you go.
I believe it.
Recipes.
That's the beauty of this whole thing, man. That's, you know, getting to meet people,
And then
collaborating
maybe
with people.
then we'll come back, dude, and be
Yeah,
like,
no, for
dude,
sure.
That's
We're
the
definitely
goal.
gonna sit down with
yeah. Do
Hey.
episode 20 and, you know,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
No, Gabe, for reals, thank you for
Yeah, man.
sharing everything with us,
Of course, it's been a
letting us
pleasure.
into your world, and,
For real.
and just being so open and like so upfront with us, and just letting
It's been a
everybody
pleasure.
learn a little bit about yourself. Of course, you're more than just what we just talked about. You're like an onion, you know.
yeah, there's tons
Yeah,
of things, but
definitely.
and I've always held things back. I was telling Luis and David that before, like off camera, that I've done plenty of interviews, you know, with the Desert Sun and with like the Wall Street Journal and the USA Today and other publications, that I always hold the real things back and kind
Right.
of just make myself look like, oh, I'm an angel. But the reason why I wanted to share this with you guys, because you guys are local, and you know,
That's right.
there
Thank
might
you,
be
man.
somebody
Thank
out.
Man.
Appreciate
There might be
that.
somebody out there that can that is in the same boat that I was 20 years ago, and can hopefully it helps him to think like it's never too late, and
It's never
you
too
can find that thing inside you that makes you push forward and away from negative things.
Man, shout out
That's
Chef
awesome.
Woo,
Chef
man.
Chef
Hey,
Wu.
before we leave, do you want to share maybe, you know, anything like your Instagram or your?
Oh yeah, you definitely can find me on IG, Chef Wu One Life, and that came from almost starting like a clothing line once. I was like One Life.
Okay.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Chef Wu One Life.
Again,
on
where
IG.
are you chopping it up right now?
Right now, I'm in 2 boutique hotels: Sparrows Lodge in Palm Springs and Holiday House in Palm Springs. We're open for lunch 11 to 6
We don't
every
have
day.
to. We don't have to wait 4 months.
You don't
right?
have to make a reservation for lunch, but for dinners, definitely make a reservation, and they're worth it. So
That's right. That's right. That's right.
and just maybe mention you've heard this podcast.
Hey,
Make
There
hook
it
it up.
is.
Hook
You
it up.
heard?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Luis.
Yeah, well, on that note, we'll go ahead and close it out. Again, Chef Wu, thank you for your time and thank you for the knowledge you spit. And
course.
I
Right,
mean,
that's right.
Man.
this is all about, the listener, and for them to take something out of it is the ultimate goal, really. So on that end, again, my name is Luis. I'm here with my boy, co-host David, Renee.
What's
That's
up?
it. Selected series.
Peace
All
out,
right,
guys.
man.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.